Climate change denial, also known as global warming denial, is a type of science denial that denies the scientific consensus on climate change. It involves using rhetorical strategies to create the appearance of a scientific dispute when none exists. Denial can also be implicit when people accept the science but do not reconcile it with their beliefs or actions. Climate scientists, particularly in the United States, have reported pressure from the government and oil industry to conceal scientific data and suppress their work. The fossil fuels lobby, the Koch brothers, industry advocates, ultra-conservative think tanks, and ultra-conservative alternative media have all been linked to climate change denial, often in the United States. More than 90% of papers skeptical of climate change come from right-wing think tanks. Climate change denial is undermining efforts to act on or adapt to climate change and has a powerful influence on the politics of climate change. The terms skeptic and climate change skepticism are used interchangeably with climate change deniers, but the term skepticism is misapplied. The Committee for Skeptical Inquiry urged the media to avoid using the term skeptic to describe those who deny scientific facts, as it is a deceptive term that gives credibility to those who oppose science and scientific investigation. The term denier was used more frequently when challenging established science but was not used when someone was wishy-washy on the subject or in the middle. Soft climate change denial involves accepting the scientific consensus but not translating their acceptance into action. There are various types of denial of science, including misinformation, climate misinformation, and consensus denial. Some examples include trend skeptics, attribution skeptics, and impact deniers. Climate change denial involves disputing different points in the scientific consensus, such as denying the existence of climate change, accepting it without denying any significant human contribution, accepting it but denying scientific findings about its effects on nature and human society, and accepting all of these while denying that humans can mitigate or reduce the problems. Denialism includes denial of climate change, which refers to the use of rhetorical devices to give the appearance of legitimate debate where there is none. Strategies employed in this process include climate change conspiracy theory, cherry-picking data from brief time periods, and denialism. Climate change conspiracy theory involves claims that the scientific consensus entails plotting to falsify data or censor the truth. Selectivity can involve cherry-picking unusual or out-of-date papers, exaggerated uncertainty, and fallacious reasoning. In conclusion, the media has been using the term skeptic to describe those who deny scientific facts, but it is important to recognize that denial of climate change is a complex issue that requires careful consideration and action. Climate change denial opposes the results of academic studies of scientific agreement on human-caused climate change, as the level of scientific consensus positively correlates with expertise in climate science. Climate change denial groups often argue that CO2 is a trace gas in the atmosphere, which has a significant warming effect, and doubling the proportion leads to a large temperature increase. They also point to natural variability, such as sunspots and cosmic rays, to explain the warming trend, but climate models already take these factors into account. Climate change denial literature often features the suggestion that we should wait for better technologies before addressing climate change, when they will be more affordable and effective. Some climate change denial groups also play up potential non-human causes, such as solar variation, to explain the warming trend. However, climate models already take these factors into account, and the scientific consensus is that they cannot explain the observed warming trend. Deniers have generally attacked either the IPCC's processes, scientists, or the synthesis and executive summaries. The full reports attract less attention. In 1996, climate change denier Frederick Seitz criticized the 1995 IPCC Second Assessment Report, alleging corruption in the peer review process. The House of Lords Economics Committee wrote in 2005, questioning the objectivity of the IPCC process, and in 2008, the U.S. Senate Committee on Environment and Public Works minority members released a report under the leadership of the Senate's most vocal global warming denier, Jim Inhofe, which summarizes scientific dissent from the IPCC. Some climate change deniers promote conspiracy theories alleging that the scientific consensus on climate change is illusory or that climatologists are acting out of their own financial interests by causing undue alarm about a changing climate. The Great Global Warming Swindle is a 2007 British documentary film that denies the scientific consensus on climate change, arguing that it is influenced by funding and political factors. The film received strong criticism from scientists and others, with journalist George Monbiot calling it the same old conspiracy theory that we've been hearing from the denial industry for the past 10 years. Climate deniers involved in the Climatic Research Unit email controversy, ClimateGate, in 2009 claimed that researchers faked data in their research publications and suppressed their critics in order to receive more funding. 8 committees investigated these allegations and published reports, each finding no evidence of fraud or scientific misconduct. Lukewarmists are politically conservative and anxious about the threat to the social structure posed by the implications of climate science. They advocate for a slow and cautious response, emphasizing uncertainties and playing down dangers. Climate change skepticism has focused instead on influencing the opinion of the public, legislators, and the media, in contrast to legitimate science. The conservative National Center for Policy Analysis supports an adaptation-only policy, while oil companies like ExxonMobil endorse it. A 2022 study found that the public in many countries substantially underestimates the degree of scientific consensus that humans are causing climate change. Climate change deniers often debate whether action should be taken now or in the near future, fearing the economic ramifications of such restrictions. In conclusion, climate change deniers have shifted their focus from denying global warming to asserting that climate solutions are unworkable, that global warming is harmless or even beneficial, and that the environmental movement is unreliable. Neoskepticism, a form of confirmation bias, is a growing trend in opposition to climate policy. Neoskeptics question the magnitude of risks associated with global warming and argue that reducing them has more costs than benefits. This shift in stance highlights the need for science to inform decision-making under uncertainty and improve communication and education. Soft climate denial can stem from concerns about the economics and impacts of climate change, particularly the concern that strong measures to combat or mitigate its impacts will seriously inhibit economic growth. Conspirational beliefs about climate change are often rooted in conspiracy theories, which people misattribute events to a powerful group's secret plot or plan. These beliefs are more prevalent in narcissistic people and those who consistently look for meanings or patterns in their world. Conspiracy disbelief is also linked to lower levels of education and analytic thinking. The psychology of climate change denial examines why people deny climate change despite the scientific consensus on climate change. A study assessed public perception and action on climate change on grounds of belief systems and identified 7 psychological barriers affecting behavior that would facilitate mitigation, adaptation, and environmental stewardship: cognition, ideological worldviews, comparisons to key people, costs and momentum, disbelief in experts and authorities, perceived risks of change, and inadequate behavioral changes. Many climate change deniers have disagreed with the scientific consensus regarding other environmental issues, such as ozone depletion, DDT, and passive smoking. The Marshall Institute began campaigning against increased regulations on environmental issues in the 1990s, arguing that the science was too uncertain to justify any government intervention.